Hi, in this video, I'll be going over Export Control Policy, ECL, also known as Export Control List. The Export Control List is a list of items subject to export controls, outlining goods that require special permission or licensing for export. ECL is designed to regulate the export of sensitive goods to prevent them from being used for unauthorized purposes, such as in weapon development or other security-sensitive applications. Here are some key requirements for ECL. ECL requires implementing measures to ensure compliance with internal agreements and national security regulations regarding the export of sensitive goods. Valid license or permits required for exporting items listed on the ECL. The ECL is a critical component of export control regimes in many countries. For this video, I'll be using Canada as our example. My example will involve CGDESS, which stands for Controlled Goods Directory Electronic System Security. It is an electronic system used in Canada for managing and processing applications related to controlled goods, which are goods that have military or national security significance and are subject to strict regulatory controls. I have prepared 3 policies with the following use cases to demonstrate how to implement ECL with CloudAz. An employee without a valid license attempts to access ECL materials. A licensed user with a valid export classification attempts to access ECL materials. A CGDESS authorized employee with a valid license and valid export classification attempts to access ECL materials. And finally, a Canadian citizen attempts to access ECL materials. On my CloudAz, I've already prepared and deployed all the policy needed for this video. Let's take a look at my first policy, deny access for ECL document or materials. In my subject components, we have not in Canadian citizenship or USA citizenship. This means subjects that are not Canadian or USA citizens are subject to this policy. We have our resource component, ECL classified data. An action component, run. I have also enabled user messages for both allow and deny activities. This will be used later in our policy validator. In conclusion, what our parent policy will do is to deny everyone who is not a Canadian or USA citizen from running ECL classified data. Now let's take a look at our sub-policies. Our first sub-policy allows licensed user on export classification 1, 3, or 5. These numbers represent different groups for export classification. Additionally, I've also explained the export classification codes in detail in my description. For this sub-policy, we have subject component, licensed user, and resource component, ECL do use list, ECL nuclear non-proliferation list, ECL miscellaneous goods and technology. What this sub-policy will do is to allow licensed users that are not Canadian or USA citizens to access resources such as ECL do use list, ECL nuclear non-proliferation list, and ECL miscellaneous goods and technology. Let's take a look at our last sub-policy. Our last sub-policy allows licensed user and CGDESS authorized user on export classification 2 or 6 or 5504. As we previously mentioned, the CGDESS is an electronic system used in Canada for managing and processing applications related to controlled goods. In my subject component, we have licensed user and CGDESS authorized user. We have our resource component, ECL 5504, ECL munition list, ECL missile technology control regimen list. One thing I want to highlight in our subject component is that the user must satisfy both licensed user and CGDESS authorized user to be able to access these resources. In my policy validator, I've already prepared all the test cases we'll be using for this video. For my first use case, we have an employee without a valid license attempting to access the ECL materials. Let's run our test case. As we expected, the decision came out denied. We can see in our obligation, this user John got denied because of our parent policy, deny access for ECL document or materials, because John does not satisfy any of the conditions for the parent policy or the sub-policies. For our second use case, we have a licensed user with a valid export classification attempting to access the ECL materials. Let's run our test case. As we expected, although this user is also from France, but he satisfies the condition we set in 6.1, allow licensed user on export classification 1, 3, and 5. Therefore, he was able to access the ECL materials. In my third use case, we have a CGDESS authorized employee with a valid license and a valid export classification attempting to access ECL materials. Let's run our test case. As we expected, the decision came out allowed because this satisfies our subpolicy 6.2 allow licensed user and CGDESS authorized user on export classification 2 or 6 or 5504. And lastly, we have a Canadian citizen attempting to access ECL materials. Let's run our test case. In our parent policy, we have allowed both Canadian and US citizens to allow access for ECL materials. So in this case, we're able to access. With this, we conclude our video on export control ECL use case examples. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to the NextLabs channel, and stay tuned for more export control policies.